Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are on this fast forward planet. And I hear a cat.
Let
New
me let
Orleans,
me get out
New
of the
Orleans is
room.
full of cats.
I'll be right back.
That's okay. Cats of all kinds. And this is a Sunday Sanity episode of my project called Sustain What. And Sunday Sanity, we started years ago in the pandemic. To keep my own head straight, I would have my musical friends come together when we were all in lockdown, using the miracle of the internet to connect. The one thing you can't do, there's some ways to do it now, is like harmonize or play simultaneously. But we would, on Sunday mornings back then and Sunday evenings now a little bit, we would just get together to stay sane. Had poets and writers and musicians gathering. And today I couldn't resist reaching out to Tom Piazza, who's a longtime writer in various forms, novels, music analysis, music criticism. He's written books on jazz, on country, Jimmy Rogers. He's won a Grammy Award for liner notes for a Martin Scorsese film on fill in the blank. I can't remember.
Should I jump in and
Yeah,
say?
jump in. What was the thing you got the Grammy?
Oh, it was a series back in, what was it, maybe 2003, something like that. Scorsese produced a series of short films or films of some size on the history of the blues. It was called Martin Scorsese Presents the Blues, A Musical Journey. So anyway, he had Wim Wenders and he had Clint Eastwood and he had a whole rogues gallery full of folk there. And they had a box set. They made a box set out of it of 5 CDs, basically charting the history of the blues from even prehistoric times up through the present. And so I wrote the notes for that box and I won a Grammy Award.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And now you stumbled, I wouldn't say stumbled into, after meeting John Prine, who is in my pantheon of songwriters. There's no one higher. There are people at that level, John Lennon, but there's no one I think I've ever experienced as a songwriter who has the certain qualities that John Prine had. Poetic but grounded, simple melodies that hid very complex ideas, lines that cut you like a knife. There's a hole in Daddy's arm where all the money goes. Just how many words is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 or 8 words that just kill. But he could also be freaking hilarious. One of the first songs of his I learned was "Please Don't Bury Me Down in That Cold, Cold Ground. I'd rather have you cut me up and pass me all around. Throw my brain in a hurricane, and the blind can have my eyes, the deaf can take both up my ears, and if they don't mind the size." So what a character, and he was appropriately embraced by the wider community of musicians. He passed away through COVID-19 in April 2020, and sorely missed. But thanks to Tom, through his writing, and thanks to countless musicians around this country and elsewhere around the world, the songs live on, and John's spirit lives on. The book is well, I'm going to ask you to weigh in a little bit, but it's pretty clear. It started out as it was going to be sort of a co-written memoir, and then of course John died, and that left you with some interesting challenges and opportunities. So first, I just want to say congratulations, and you're in New Orleans with your cat or two.
Yes, my much better half, Mary, I think just brought our cat out of the room. Yeah, we're in New Orleans, and thank you for the nice words, Andy. Yeah, it didn't start as the memoir. It began as a article.
Oh, right. Yeah, but I mean, yeah. So go to the article, right? Talk about that.
Well, the book was an outgrowth of all. It's all.
Right.
Yeah, all of this stuff went into this ultimate project of a book. But no, I had been turned on to John Prine's music, his songs, by Mary, my better half, Mary Howell. Her brother Stokes and his pal Bojack Carlish out in Missouri. These guys were just stone John Prine freaks, and so that's where I first heard some of John's songs. You know, I loved them and everything, but I never really got too deep into it. And he came to New Orleans eventually. I tell this story in the book, but I may as well say. And we went to hear him at the Sanger Theater, and it was great. And he sang the song Mexican Home, which I'm sure you know, of course, but not in the original band arrangement, but in this stripped down solo arrangement where he just sang it, and it had a completely different mood. And it was about his father's death. Well, you had to get to the last verse, you know, to realize that that's what it was. And I was so unhorsed by the experience of hearing him sing that, you know, in that beautiful theater, all alone, dead quiet in the house, just listening to it. And I thought, there's something here that's raising some kind of question for me that I don't even know what the question is. Mm-hmm. And I kept it in my mind, and he returned in January of 2018. And so Mary and I got in touch with John's management. I thought maybe there's something here that I would want to write about or investigate for myself. And so we went backstage and met up with John and everything. Eventually, without going through everything, we made a plan that I would visit them down at this vacation house in Gulfport, Florida, and do something, you know, not the usual thing, do something. And it turned out that John, you know, the night before I got there, this is in April or May, I can't even remember now, of 2018, John had taken delivery of a 1977 Coupe de Ville, candy apple red with marshmallow white seats, and he had just had it delivered. He bought it on eBay for $10,000 and had it delivered from Pennsylvania. This is utterly in character, believe me. And so the next day we just took a ride down to Sarasota and yacked and recorded it. So, yeah. And so I made an article about that for the magazine, The Oxford American. And it got a lot of notice in the, I guess, you know, folk music community, certainly among John Prine fans. It was wonderful. And long story short, he asked me to, after we knew each other, we became almost like instant best friends. It was just one of those things. We had similar senses of humor. We both like to eat, both like to drink vodka, both like to...
With ginger ale, right?
With ginger, you know. So anyway, so we just became pals and visited back and forth. He and his wife Fiona came down to New Orleans and visited Mary and me, and I would stop over in his house and would stay up till the wee hours of the morning, just him and me sitting around the table, wherever the table happened to be, playing songs, Jimmy Rogers, Carter Family, Townes Van Zandt, whatever seemed to be right at that moment. And he asked me to write his memoir after knowing him for a year and a half. And we got started on it in February 2020. And as everybody probably knows, that was right as we were making the curve into COVID. And so we had this fantastic weekend where we got started. Extraordinary stuff, talking about his early life in Chicago and talking about going to Nashville for the first times and meeting Cowboy Jack Clement, the famous notorious record producer and songwriter. And then we made a date to get together in another 2 or 3 weeks. 2 weeks, I think it was, March 12th. And by that time, the whole COVID thing had really kicked into a new gear. And we decided to wait and sort of see how it was going. And March 12th, so 4 or 5 weeks after that, John died from COVID. So
hold on there, because I want to take us back in time and then come forward to that key moment, because obviously what a tumultuous moment that was. I mean, he had many illnesses and the like. Yeah. But I want to take us back a notch. So people can understand your wider experience.
Sure.
and why John rang the bell. As I mentioned in my post today, I met you and met John Prine's work around the same time in the early 1970s.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Well, no one knows what journey they'll be on when they're just they're in college.
Mm-hmm.
But I was up in Williams College with a friend, my roommate from Brown University, Aaron Wolf, and we were with my brother playing at some coffee house, or maybe it was a bigger venue, a lot of microphones, and we were playing with this guy named Tom Piazza, who you can see here with a melodica, and Aaron Wolf.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and Aaron Wolf on the far right of that image, hidden by the microphone. He was he was my entry point to John Prine and to Ry Cooder and to Steve Goodman. I grew up in Rhode Island. I knew folk music. My aunt sang Pete Seeger and Dylan, but I hadn't really gotten into the Prine thing until I met Aron, who was a very funny and talented musician who sadly passed away of cancer some years back.
Wow.
But so there I am playing with Aaron Wolf, who was my window into Prine with you. What was your journey from then forward? You were very much into literature. You went to Iowa to a writer's project, and what I'd like to get from you is sort of a little bit of your learning curve in literature and jazz, and then what happened with John.
Sure. Well, okay, so I graduated from Williams same year as your brother Jim in 1976, and yeah, it was kind of like I had one foot, on one train track and a foot on the other train track. I was both really, really interested in literature and really, really interested at that time in playing piano. That's what I was doing. I was I taught myself how to play piano up to a certain point when I was at Williams, and so when I left school, I went to New York City, and I started playing piano gigs and studying with a great teacher named Sanford Gold. But when I was at Williams, I had a number of classes with this professor named Clay Hunt. If anybody's watching who's that age, they might remember Clay Hunt. He was a remarkable guy, big guy from Kentucky, and he did these classes in Dante. I mean, real deep dive type classes in Dante, in modern poetry, the modernist, Ezra Pound, Eliot, Wallace Stevens, and Milton class. And so I was like, that was what I really loved. And I liked to write poetry, but I got really sandbagged by jazz piano. I was a big Bud Powell fan, big Barry Harris fan, big Tommy Flanagan fan, big Hank Jones fan, etc. And so when I got to New York, that's what I was doing. And eventually I got a job at the Barnes & Noble Sale Annex on Fifth Avenue, back when there was one Barnes & Noble in Manhattan. And I was working shelving books there, and I started reading fiction while I was there. I was never a fiction reader, particularly in college, but I read a book by Norman Mailer called An American Dream. And at this point, I think it's a pretty cheesy novel in a lot of ways, but the writing was absolutely electric, and it reminded me of jazz. There was a sense of him taking chances, and so I kind of had these two different strains running in my life. And well, cut the story short, but anyway, at a certain point, I realized that as much as I love playing piano, and I still do, and guitar, I really felt that writing, especially writing fiction, was, put it this way, I felt that the horizon of my aspirations, let's say with the piano, would have been to sound like Bud Powell or Barry Harris or Tommy Flanagan, somebody. But there was already a Barry Harris and a Tommy Flanagan,
right?
So I was like, but with the writing, when I started reading Melville and started reading Dostoevsky and all that, I thought, there's something here that I could do that would be not like what everybody else was doing. I didn't know what it was, but I had that sense. And so I just, there was two roads diverged, and I realized that I couldn't do both of them at the same time best.
Right.
You could probably do both okay, but I wanted to see how far I could take it with actually writing. So, yeah. So at this point, I have 4 novels. But I want to tell you something funny. I don't want to steer too much. I know you have questions, but just, you brought up, sort of the road to how I got involved with John. John Prine was actually, in his way, like a very literary guy. He didn't wear it on his sleeve particularly. When I got to know him, I had just gotten started writing on a book that became my novel, The Auburn Conference. So, and John was fascinated by it. He used to ask me about it all the time. How's the work going? What's going on? And he was especially kind of intrigued by the fact that Melville was a character in that book, alongside Mark Twain, Harriet Beecher Stowe, Emily Dickinson, and a number of other characters from that vintage. But he was really impressed with Melville, and so he started calling me Herman. That's
so him, right?
It's so him, and in fact, it kind of painful to think about it a little bit, but the last words I ever had from him in a text, probably a week before he died, he said he wrote back to me and said, "Tell Herman I said land ho." And I wish he had been able to live to read the Auburn Conference. He was so intrigued by it,
Wow. So I mentioned earlier, there's this whole galaxy of performers who are sustaining the Prine songbook and vibe, and one of them is in the green room, the digital green room. My old friend David Ross, he'll be on in a few minutes. Hey, David. I wanted to take us into the book with something. There's so many in the book. You do mention that Prine was absolutely influenced by Bob Dylan.
Oh yeah.
So maybe talk about that a little bit. But then there was this guy, Dave Prine, his older brother. So, but talk about the Dylan thing briefly, because it's clearly a keystone.
Well, so Dave Prine was John's elder brother. Yep. One of 2 elder brothers. And Dave was a great and steeped in it, old-time musician. And he even taught at the Old Town School of Folk Music in Chicago. And Dave was straight Carter family, Elizabeth Cotton, Mississippi John Hurt, Ramblin' Jack Elliott, all of that stuff, the New Law City Ramblers, Mike Seeger. And so John, who kind of was kind of a juvenile delinquent before he went off to the army during Vietnam and was stationed in Germany, thank God. But John, Dave Prine needed somebody to accompany him because Dave was a great fiddle player, great banjo player, very good guitarist too. He played everything, as so many old time musicians do. But so he needed John to sort of be his accompanist on guitar. So he taught John the rudiments, but John got really intrigued by all these musicians, and it was sort of a way out of that whole kind of desperado juvenile delinquent scene that he was inhabiting in his early teens, And one of the things that John told me happened that kind of just busted him open was when he finally saw Bob Dylan on TV. I guess Dave told him Bob was going to be on TV, and so they watched the Steve Allen show, and Dylan was on there, and he played "The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll." It was interviewed briefly by Steve Allen. Nobody's going to remember who Steve Allen is at this point, except people of a certain vintage. Right. So John said that he just watched that, and he said everything about it just blew him away. Just the way Bob looked, the way he talked, of course, the song and everything. And that, I think, really started him in earnest down that path.
Yeah.
And of course, Dylan's a literary guy too.
Well, yeah. And then Dave, in this section, I love this part of the interview you did with him. He says, among other things, he said, so when he started writing, that's why his stuff, it's real, it's human. If John Prine's songs don't get to you, you are dead. or you've been lobotomized.
Yeah, right,
or you're
right.
just not paying attention.
Not paying attention. I remember him saying that. Yeah.
It's just remarkable. And unfortunately, he passed away at age 85. Dave, his older brother, I believe, but just a couple of years.
He was a great guy. I have a whole conversation with him after John passed. I went up to Maywood. He was still living in the same town, a few blocks away from the house where they were raised, the whole old boys, you know. And we had this great conversation, which is in the book. And we parted, and he said, "Well, we got to get together and do this and really play some music." And I was like, "Absolutely, man!" And then he passed away before we could do that. It's definitely, yeah. I wish it hadn't happened that way. Man.
Yeah. There's one other comment I want to bring in here. Jeff Hanna, who was part of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. I was scoping out some stuff about John and his influence, and he was on their "Will the Circle Be Unbroken" Part 2. Yeah. Which came out in the late 80s. The first one, I had John McEwen on here a month or two ago talking about that first album, which is so pivotal for me. But just listen here briefly to what Jeff says. I'm going to cue it up. Hold on.
Prine's name has been in the discussions for this project at the very beginning. Because, as I said, he's kind of like he continues that tradition of the sort of strolling minstrel, this guitar singer songwriter. But John's got that element of which Bob Dylan kind of before John had is that continuing in that tradition of Woody Guthrie and Jimmy Rogers, that songwriter that sees stuff, and he can talk about serious things in a humorous way and humorous things in a serious way.
That line in particular really struck me. Can you briefly talk about his humor? And there's another line in the book that gets at this too. I included it in my post today. His nonchalance around the seriousness of the human condition, basically.
Yeah. And I think I said a nonchalance attitude toward impending disaster or something.
Exactly, right.
Well, John was unique, man. It's very hard there was always a kind of a edge, not a bad edge, but kind of a awareness of the, I think I quote I do quote in the book a thing that the Mississippi novelist Barry Hanna, Barry Hanna's writing, great, terrific writer. And I heard him say one time, he said, "Good old boys know there's something unsmiling at the heart of things. That's why we like to laugh." And I always felt that kind of applied to John, I mean, you listen to a song like Unwed Fathers or Sam Stone, or, I mean, go through the list. And in each of those songs, which are very, very serious songs about tragedy, there's a tenderness also at the heart of it, and a kind of tragic empathy, and tenderness toward people who are suffering. So he always had that, and at the same time, he was just very, very funny. Can I tell you one little anecdote out of it, or do we? Yeah,
yeah.
We went to see, actually, I'm quoting from the book, but it always struck me. We went to see one time, we went to the Ryman Auditorium, in Nashville, and we went to see Joan Baez on one of her farewell tours anyway. And so we're sitting on the balcony, and Joan Baez sings this song about a knight and a fair maiden who somebody has just entered the arena. Hey,
keep going. You finish your anecdote, and I'll introduce David.
All right. So anyway, so this knight sort of takes this fair maiden back to his castle, and has his way with her, right? And so the fair maiden pulls the knife out of his scabbard and takes it and stabs him in the back and kills him. That's the song. That's right. And at that point, John, very low voice next to me, sitting up there, goes, "My back hurts." Right. And it was like right away. I was sitting there. I had this pal in 6th grade, Billy Carolyn, who used to he could do nothing and crack me up, and I'd get caught and get punished for laughing at what this, So it was the same kind of thing with John. He was very, very funny all the time, and even when he was being really serious.
Yeah,
just like Hannah said.
One of my great regrets is I never saw him in concert, and nor met him. But it's been fun reading the book because it's taking me right into that space. So David Ross, I'm going to unmute you. Or maybe you have to unmute yourself. Let's see.
There we go.
There we go. So let me just, David Ross, I've known for a very long time. We were compadres in the Hudson River Valley. David comes from the world of the arts. He was the head of the Whitney Museum of American Art at one point, among many accolades. But he's also a marvelous musician. We used to run this thing called Breakneck Ridge Revue. We played a lot of Prine, and I thought it'd be fun to bring him in. There's one other person who might join as part of that mosaic of musicians around the world who are kind of continuing the Prine journey, helping to sustain the songbook. David, how are you doing?
I'm well, and pleasure to hear you talk about Prine. Like Andy, I never met him, but I've always thought of him as like a really important American artist. He's he tells American stories.
Yeah.
There's something essential working class American about him, and but there's also a kind of honesty and dark humor, that I've always appreciated, and sadness. I'm a connoisseur of sad songs, and he's got a lot of them, and I imagine that they came from real experiences in his life, that he experienced a lot of real heartache and a lot of disappointment and a lot of pain. And of course, the latter part of his life after he got sick, I'm sure was extremely painful and difficult for him. But he kept on, and he never complained.
That's
and he was
true. Yeah.
He's a great character in that regard.
Well, just briefly, I had highlighted this passage from the book about Grandpa was a carpenter because it so encapsulates the idea of him painting with words. A word picture about a working man is his grandfather. He knew how to put a copper penny into a burned out fuse. Mm-hmm. And those little details, half the people, 3/4 of the people who heard the song probably didn't understand what that was about. But if they wanted to, it would lead you into something very concrete.
Well, I think one of the things that is so extraordinary about what he managed to bring off is that he had that ability, and Dylan sort of has this too, right? With like a little brushstroke here and a brushstroke here, and so that the details somehow resonate with each other and create an image that doesn't have to be fleshed in with every detail. That takes a lot of intuition, and it takes a lot of skill and a lot of hard work, both combined, to make that kind of thing really work. It was amazing.
Oh, sorry. Tom, could you just talk briefly about his work methodology? That idea that these songs were sort of sculpted. Some of them feel so simple, but I'm trying to remember in the book whether you got into the details of how much he would work over a tune. No. I mean, no, because for one thing, I wasn't really around for Degenerative, right?
Back when he was writing those songs, and I met him just after, when we got together was just after he had completed his final record, the Tree of Forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't even see him do that. Apparently, here, if you want methodology, what happened was he didn't have a record out for a record of original, new original songs for, I forget how much it was, 12 years, 15 years, 10 years, something like that. I mean, that's a long time to go for a, recording artist. And his wife, Fiona, I think it was his son, Tommy. They basically sort of, put a gun to his back and said, "You got to go write some more songs." And they got a hotel room for him in Nashville. And as he would say, I mean, I don't know how absolutely true this is in all detail, but he said they basically locked him in the room with some rations of, food and a guitar and a couple guitars and a ukulele, he said, and said, write some songs. So he came out of there with 10 songs, but I guess he had to be sort of forced to do it. Like a lot of artists who was both, no, I'm not going to finish that sentence. Let's just leave that off to start.
Like a lot of artists. David, you must know about artists who had to be forced under pressure to create.
Well, I mean, a lot of people wait, until the pressure is there. I don't know, Andy. I know you're such a great kind of like disciplined journalist. You turn it out every day, and it's always amazing. But for me as a writer, I wait. If I have a 4-month deadline, I'll wait before the fourth month is up, and then I'll sit down and write it. And because I need that pressure for me to write anything. I mean, and songwriting. Well, that's the hardest kind of writing there is. It's much harder than essay writing or writing about art history or writing about, or writing biography. It's Andy, you're a songwriter too.
Yeah.
It's, you're never sure. And, to have that level of confidence, whether a line is going to work, whether the song is going to go over, and Prine had some, like the song that I thought I would sing tonight if we have chance, but I don't have to.
Yeah.
Has one of my favorite lines in it, because like where it came from is like, the Easter egg ain't got a leg to stand on. Like who would, but it fits totally. It's that song Summer's End, which which is one of the sad ones. It's for me, because
I thought his last record. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's really, Come On Home is, and he doesn't hesitate. He doesn't even wait a half a beat before he comes into the Come On Home. It's when I trying to learn it, it was like I wanted to take a couple of beats, but no, you listen to me. He jumps right into that, because that's what he's trying. Whoever the song was addressed to, somebody who he needed to convince that it was okay.
Yeah. I want Carter Brooks just is coming in from the West Coast with a note about a particular song, The Great Compromise. It says here, The Great Compromise seems particularly timely at the moment. Any of the guests would like to comment on it?
It was never. Dave, do you want to grab it first? I've been yakking.
No. Go ahead. No.
It was never honestly. I mean, I hate to say it. It was never one of my favorite songs, and so I can't even really. It was sort of like that. The other song, which I think was right around the same time, the late John Garfield blues.
Yeah, I cover that song. I love that. I love that song. I mean, I think that, and it's got Dime Store Jew. To use the line Dime Store Jew, it's like, whoa, like, okay, like,
I forgot about that.
That's like, okay, Dime Store Jew. All right.
Yeah.
What an image,
But I'm sorry, I can't really comment on The Great Compromise particularly. It wasn't a song that, I don't have universal recall for all of John's songs.
That would be impossible. Yeah.
Say what? What did you say?
That would be very hard.
Yeah. And, also the ones that are good are so good, and they're not all, like anything else. They're not all, to me, same degree of attraction.
Yeah, absolutely. David, would you like to play a tune?
Yeah.
Well, I have no idea if my setup is balanced, because I was just coming back from an art opening in Garrison at the Magazzino of an Italian artist who is mostly known. His name is Piero Manzoni. He's mostly known for the most outrageous thing he did. He died very young at 29, but he made cans of his own shit. Which he sold as merde de artista, and he sold it as the price of gold for that weight at that time.
Oh my God!
And it was quite outrageous. I remember, but he did other things too, and they have a beautiful exhibition of his work.
Do they have the cans? Or do they have the cans on display also?
That wasn't a work they have. That work is in major museum collections. I remember being at the Philadelphia Museum, and it's in there in one of the most important galleries of the Philadelphia Museum, and there was a guard standing next to it, a young African-American woman. And I said, "Do you know what you're guarding here?" She said, "What?" I said, "You're guarding a can of the artist's shit." She said, "You are kidding me." I said, "No, but it's a great work. It's really true." She said, and then she started calling over other guards, It's like, anyhow, I'm happy to make it back in time, because I had promised.
Well, that's great. So give us a little taste of the.
We'll see. We see if we can make this work. You hearing that?
Yeah.
Well, summer's in, around the bend just flying. Swimming suits are on the line just drying. I'll meet you there per our conversation. I hope I didn't ruin your vacation. Well, you never know how far from home you're feeling until you watch the shadows on the ceiling. Well, I don't know, but I can see it snowing. In your car, the windows are wide open. Come on home. Come on home. You don't have to be alone. Just come on home. Well, Valentines break hearts and minds at random. That old Easter egg ain't got a leg to stand on. Well, I can see that you can't win for trying. And New Year's Eve is bound to leave you crying. Come on home. Come on home. No, you don't have to be alone. Just come on home. Well, the moon and stars hang out in bars just talking. I still love that picture of us walking, just like that old house we thought was haunted. Summer's end came faster than we wanted. Come on home. Come on home. No, you don't have to be alone. Just come on home. Come on home. You don't have to be alone. Just come on home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bravo.
Was the balance okay? I have no idea. Literally, usually takes me a half hour to balance.
It was fine. The song came through fine.
Good.
And just another great example of how he could do. It really is a painterly approach. At least, not every song of his has that same characteristic, but those scenes, his word choices, They really are painterly. There is a picture.
But they also are, they're American art of a certain period. American art looking at the kind of the sadder side of life.
Yep. Oh, Carter here has put up a lyric in a comment. This is from The Great Compromise. Used to sleep at the foot of Old Glory and awake in the dawn.
Oh, yeah.
But much to my surprise, when I opened my eyes, I was a victim of the Great Compromise. Yeah. Although Trump is not compromising, unfortunately.
Well, we tend to think of John, I don't know, not so much in the arena, of like the political songs or whatever, but then of course there's Your Flag Decal Won't Get You Into Heaven Anymore.
Yeah, right.
Which is a good companion piece to The Great Compromise. I love that song. There's a great video of if anybody's watching this who wants to check it out at some point. It was filmed at the Station Inn, Nashville Club. I think on the eve of the 2016 elections, if I'm remembering correctly. John does it with his little band in there, and it's great. We should see. Well, if we could, you should patch right in right now and show that. It's just fantastic.
I forgot that he lived to see an age of Trump. Yeah.
There are many.
We talked about it. We talked about it.
Yeah. So talk about the book. I want to get back to that point when we left off for the third of the way through the show, where he had died. And here you are, you've committed to doing a book with him that had a certain plan.
Yeah.
And he passed on. So take us back to the writing process. And what's your own description of the book? I used the word, I was trying to be like telegraphic, and I used the word biography, and it's not. It's a memoir, but memoirs are like by the person. It has interviews, but it's very much like a Jack Kerouac on the road at the same time. So what's your tell us about how it came together after that jolt, and then what do you see its character is now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the word memoir is problematic, but so is the word novel. All these genres, the borders are so porous. They leak all over the place. And so we got this. All right. So John and I decided we were going to do this. He and Fiona began contacting publishers who might want to do it. There was a lot of interest. This is back in 2020, spring of 2020. And so we got this phenomenal start at the end of February 2020. I think I said, talking about his early years, his family in Kentucky, his early years playing music in the folk clubs in Chicago, meeting Chris Christopherson, who brought him, at the behest of Steve Goodman, brought him to Atlantic Records. And so we talked about all that. And then we talked about the next day, we went to Cowboy Jack Clement's studio in Nashville. Cowboy Jack Clement being... music heads will know it, but just briefly, just a fine songwriter, music producer, and just this kind of larger than life character. I think I call him a Falstaffian bon vivant. He's sort of that, He used to be an Arthur Murray dance instructor. He's really a character, and so he became a mentor to John. Stepped into the role maybe that Dave, his elder brother Dave, had from a few years before, And so where am I going with this? He talked about all this stuff. We got this great start on it in February, late February, and then 6 weeks later he was gone from COVID. So what do you do at that point? Obviously we didn't have enough of the material, great as it was, to make a whole book out of. What about it? And John's wife Fiona and I talked about it a lot. And for a while it kind of went sort of in the back of the refrigerator because we weren't really sure what to do with it, But after a while, I realized that it wasn't sitting right with me to just let that incredible material just sort of sit there in the back of the refrigerator. I was deeply affected by the friendship and also by John's departure. It was very, very, very painful, like any other kind of loss. No, it wasn't like any other kind of loss. It was just plain very, very painful. And we didn't know each other for that long, but the friendship went deep. It just did. It was just one of those things, you know, it wasn't, you couldn't put it on a graph and say, this is why, this is, you know, it just was that. And so I realized that I wanted to write a book that was about both things, you know, that was about the time that we had together, and then also the nature of that loss, and what do you do about a loss like that to manage it in your life. And I realized that I was writing a book about mortality and a book about what do you do about mortality, you know? And with John, it was kind of how to keep him alive in a way, in my heart, in his fans. I mean, he's got fans. It's amazing. Since this book kind of started hitting the street, his fan base is incredible, and they're passionate, and they love John. So I thought, this is something I can do for me, and this is something I can do for the fans too, you know. And I tried my best in the book to bring John alive on the page, you know. That was what I wanted to do, because he was gone. I
can't wait to read it. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to reading this book, because I want to know more about him. And there was a kind of a mystery to him also, you know.
How so? What do you mean?
I mean, if you didn't know, if you just knew him through his songs, you know, and didn't follow him as like a fanboy, and like, just like, wow, you know, how can somebody be that real and that funny and that sophisticated and also that unsophisticated at the same time, you know? Like, he had this combination of being a really sophisticated songwriter, but some of the stuff is just like so wonderfully kind of like corny and silly, you know. And he wasn't afraid to be silly.
Yes, that's really true.
He was an entertainer. He understood about entertaining, right? And he probably didn't take himself all that more seriously than that, right?
Well, in the book, yeah, you talk about him as very much in a relationship with his audience and during shows.
Oh, yeah. Oh, listen, I mean, you know, when John died, I was trying to fill that chair, you know. I mean, where was he? He wasn't there anymore. So I arranged to do two things, and they're both in the book, the results of those two things. And one was I drove up to Bloomington, Indiana, to where Jason Wilbur lives. Jason was John's longtime lead guitarist for over 20 years, and a great guy, part-time journalist too. And I wanted to talk to him about John, what it was like to go on the road with John, because that was something I didn't have a firsthand experience of. And he was so eloquent. And then the second trip I made was what I was talking about before, to see Dave Prine. But you know, what Jason Wilbur said was that John was able to do. You know, John wasn't the most sophisticated guitarist. He wasn't the most sophisticated singer. He wasn't, you know, he didn't have really intricate Leonard Cohen-like, you know, deep thoughts in it. But they were deep. But the thing was, he was able to connect with audiences. He said that he saw John do this over and over again. Even like if he made a mistake, it was almost like the audience loved him more. There was a thing that he brought to his presence on stage that was ineffable. It's very hard to really put a label on it, but people loved him. I think I say in the book that he was so different from Dylan in that way, like that a lot of male fans said that, you know, almost like wanted to be Dylan, you know, but you didn't want to be John Prine. You wanted to just hang out with him. Right. Because he was so much freaking fun to hang out with. And he was I miss him so bad. But I tried to bring him as alive as it was possible to bring him alive on the page, so that if you read the book, you come as close as you can come. I hope this is my conceit in doing it, I guess. I hope I was successful at it. You come as close, I think, as you could get probably to the actual experience of being with him. That's what I wanted to achieve anyway in the book. You can tell me if I did it, but.
Oh, well, I have read it. I speed read it, I will say. But no, it comes across, as I said earlier, well, I mentioned earlier Jack Kerouac, but there's also, if you could take the drug-induced quality out of Hunter Thompson, there's some aspect of what you did that has that characteristic where it's very intimate and close up, and you get the sense of your back and forthing and the car and the other points when you were in that section where you're describing that direct relationship with him. It definitely comes through, and certainly in the comments from his brother and the rest. There's one other thing I wanted to bring up, which his widow and you through some of the book sales are involved with too. There's the Hello in There Foundation.
I love that song.
And that song of, oh my God, I've written on my Sustain What project. I've had people on the show talk about isolation and anyone who's dealt with the sort of the weirdness of isolation in a world of hyperconnectedness, which is what we have now, knows, and also with aging, dealing with people going away and the loneliness. That song is unbelievable, but the goals of this foundation are also really good. I went on the website. I contributed a little bit yesterday.
Great.
And could you just talk a little bit about that?
Well, John and Fiona both are extremely empathic people, and Fiona has sort of tithed a lot of her time and energies to not just to the Hello in There Foundation, which is a great thing that benefits a lot of people who are in trouble. Certainly, like if you know the song Unwed Fathers, women who are struggling perhaps with difficult situations about their pregnancy, immigration issues. There are all these different issues that they make money available for, so it's an incredibly worthwhile thing to donate to. And one of the great things that's happened to me in regard to this is they have gotten, the publisher made available to them several hundred copies of the book that Fiona and I are signing, and so they will be sold and with a little extra premium, and that premium goes to the Hello in There Foundation, which is.
And how do people get that? Is there a website for that?
I'll put it on. I'll put the link up in a second.
Yeah. If you go on the Hello in There Foundation Facebook page or just look them up, and they make it very easy for you to contribute, and it's a really worthwhile thing to do.
It's I have it there, but it has a G on the end.
Right.
It's the hellointherefoundation.org. I accidentally left off the G, but you can just Google for it and find it. And I think that's a helpful thing to know. His songs mean a lot to people, and these issues have become as intensified as they possibly can be.
Yeah.
Well, are you going to sing a song, Andy, or?
Well, I was going to ask Tom if you might. Do you have something you want to play?
Yeah.
I mean,
sure.
I certainly can, but
Sure.
Where are you, Tom? Where are you located?
Where am I located? In this chair.
New Orleans.
Oh, New Orleans.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
New Orleans, where I've lived for 31 years, which I can't believe.
You know John Fishback at all?
Yeah, I sure do.
Yeah,
I didn't know John. Oh, he lives there, right?
He's in Beacon and New Orleans. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of my closest friends. I love John. He just came back. He's just back in New Orleans just yesterday.
Is he back in town now?
Yeah.
And friend Harry is going to be back in town also.
Right.
Very soon.
Harry Shearer. Can't wait to see that film. That's going to be so.
Oh man,
It's getting
Oh, yeah.
great reviews. You know,
Yeah, the sequel. The sequel to Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
All right. Can you hear this?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So this is the song. This is the song that I heard that first time I heard him play at the Sanger Theater. It made me cry. I'm not gonna cry now. Promise. Well, it got so hot last night, I swear I couldn't hardly breathe. The heat lightning burned the sky like alcohol. I sat on the porch without my shoes, watched the cars roll by as the headlights raced to the corner of the kitchen wall. Mama dear, your boy is here, far across the sea, waiting on that sacred core that burns inside of me. And I feel a storm all wet and warm, not 10 miles away, approaching my Mexican home. My God, I cried, it's so hot inside. You could die in the living room, take the fan from the window, prop the door back with a broom. And the cuckoo clock just died a shock. The windows feel no pain, and the air's as still as the throttle on a funeral train. Mama dear, your boy is here, far across the sea, waiting on that sacred core that burns inside of me. And I feel the storm all wet and warm, not 10 miles away, approaching my Mexican home. Well, my father died on the porch outside on an August afternoon. I sipped bourbon and cried with my friend by the light of the moon. And it's hurry, hurry, step right up, it's a matter of life and death. And the sun's gone down, the moon's just holding its breath. Mama dear, your boy is here, far across the sea, waiting on that sacred core that burns inside of me. And I feel a storm all wet and warm, not 10 miles away, approaching my Mexican home. All approaching my Mexican home. All approaching my Mexican home.
Beautiful.
It's a great song.
Absolutely. And I put up the picture from the. Hold on one second.
Oh, there's us.
Yep, from the book. And this is Father's house, right? And
that's the house that he grew up in. That's exactly right.
Well, we're at the end of the hour. We could go on a little longer, depending on your interest. But I just wanted to make sure everyone understands that this is a very special book. And let me bring it back up onto the screen so people can keep track of that. Let's see, I've got it right here. Hold on a second. Oh, Andrew.
I got it if you don't.
Oh yeah, you can hold it up. Here you go.
That's the wrong book, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, here, I'm going to show this. Hold on one more second. Share screen. There's no producer behind the curtain here. It's just me. You close the book with Walt Whitman poetry and a line about John that feels powerful. This isn't like a spoiler, right? But you talk about how listening to John, singing along with him or with each other, we can share time, see and hear the same thing, walk the same road for those minutes. A key part of the book is the title, which is Living in the Present. And you talk about how he was there. He was there in those moments. You say we generate a current, then make a moment that transcends the moment, even if only briefly. So the words the end, meaning at the end of the book, don't really seem fit here. John's spirit, everything that is just beyond the reach of words remains. We're so lucky that by hearing his voice or singing his songs, we can summon that spirit, living while we can in the present. Beautifully, a beautiful kind of an ending for the book.
Well, it's so funny when they showed it to me initially. You have John coming out of this, well, I don't know, almost like a cavernous space. And I looked at it, I thought, gee, I'm not sure how I feel about that. But as I've lived with the book, with the book's jacket over these months, I realized it's exactly the right image, And of course, the title takes off from, he had a song called Living in the Future. You know that one?
I don't know that song.
We're living in the future. I'll tell you how I know. I read it in the papers 15 years ago. And so when I did that initial, road trip with John and wrote the article for the Oxford American, I called it Living in the Present with John Prine. And so I figured that was a good title for the book, too. So
it is. And here, I want to be sure that, hold on one second. I wanted.
That sounded like Angel from Montgomery.
Well, yeah. Let me just you.
We've done a lot of something else. That's
an important part of what's out there now is other people singing his songs. And David and I we ran something called Breakneck Revue, which was kind of like Prairie Home Companion, but without the controversy for our area of the Hudson Valley. And we were gifted to have this trio, the Trouble Sisters, a group of women who are wonderful, and they sang Angel from Montgomery. And it's funky, but that's fine. Here we're going to close out with the Trouble Sisters with a little help from me and David and others doing Angel from Montgomery.
And Laurie Siegel.
Oh, man, it's another child that's grown old. Dreams of lightning, thunder, what desire. Soul house gonna burn down long time ago. It's angel, God from Montgomery. Make me a closer.
Dan, no.
Just give me one thing that I can hold on to be living is living, just a hard way to go. And when I was a young girl, I had to be a cowboy. He'd work much too looking, just a free rambling man. That was a long time, and no matter how I tried, these years just flow by like a broken down. And it ain't good. My eyes from Montgomery. Make me a closer, rodeo. Just give me one thing, I that I can hold on to believe in this living, just a hard way to go.
Patrick Jones is amazing.
I can hear them buzzing, and I ain't done nothing since I woke up today. Let the hell get a person, go away from my hell. Come home in the evening, and I'm done after stay. And it ain't nothing that flies from Montgomery. They get a poster of the old rodeo. Just get a poster that I hold on to believe in this living, just a hard way to go. To believe in this living.
Oop.
Oh, sorry.
It's just a hard way to go.
Listen to her here.
I said it's a hard. Don't you know it's a hard? It's just a hard way to go.
Yeah, Laurie Siegel. Laurie Siegel singing it. Big
Wow.
ending.
She was amazing. Yeah, we used to sing with her frequently. So thanks so much, Tom Piazza, for spending this time with us. This is Andy Revkin. This is Sustain What, the Sunday Sanity edition of my project, which has been going on for 5 years, like 600 of these, and hopefully helping the world get a little bit clearer amid all the murk and crap out there. Music helps enormously, and the creativity of John Prine, as you can see and hear, is sustained by all the people who carry on the tunes, and by Tom Piazza, who's carried on the vibe through his new book.